Hi there, this is Jenny from the Sewing Palace in Helena, Montana. Today we're going to be showing you how to make a 12-inch finished block, and we're on the last block of our Saturday Sampler online quilt along. So it's block 12, believe it or not, and that block is living right here. We're going to make it out of half square triangles and flying geese units. I'm going to show you a couple things that you want to collect and some fabric, and we'll get started. To make our block, it is a 12-inch finished block. It's in a grid system of 3, so there are 1, 2, 3 different rows, and those units finish at 4 inches. In the corners are half square triangle units, so those are made up of just some basic half square triangle units, and they finish at 4. Then these units here are 2 flying geese stacked on top of each other. They're 2-inch by 4-inch finished flying geese, so when you sew them together, they'll make a 4-inch finished unit. And then in the very center is just a 4.5-inch square. So some pretty basic units. There are some nice rulers to collect to be able to do it a little bit faster. We're going to deviate from the instructions by using the no waste method, so we can make 4 geese at a time. And then we'll use the Bloc Loc ruler to make the half square triangle units. If you want to follow the directions, they are perfect. You can certainly go ahead and do that. If you're participating in class and you're doing the fabrics, we've changed them up just a little bit, so I'll show you how those fabrics will change with your kit. If you're participating in our online quilt along and picking up your kit here at the store, we have changed the fabrics just a little bit. So for your kit, the outside half square triangle units will be red with the background fabric. The center can also be red, or you can put a cute Christmas motif or embroider a wonderful little design that finishes at 4 inches, so you can put that right in the center. And then these flying geese units will be made up of blue and green, and then you can position them either the blue on the outside or the blue on the inside. So we'll play with that when we get our units all made. Let's collect some supplies to make your block. You will need your fabric. You'll also need a starch alternative, so we use a mixture of Terreal Magic and Best Press. Put it in the atomizer bottle and it will disperse it very evenly. We use about 1/3 of amount of Terreal Magic and then 2/3 of Best Press. You can also get some cutting utensils, so a strip cutter is very helpful, and a square ruler. I do like the Creative Grids 6.5 or 7.5 inch square. And then the 2 specialty rulers that you're going to be using is a Bloc Loc Half Square triangle unit. You can use the 4.5 or larger. We are going to be trimming them to 4.5, so this will be perfect. If you have a larger one, you'll just slide it. And then the 2-inch by 4-inch flying geese Bloc Loc ruler, that's what we're going to be using to trim our flying geese units that are in the block. And we're going to be using the method called no waste flying geese. The other utensils that I have is a cutting mat. So this is a rotating cutting mat, a woolly pressing mat, a nice rotary cutter. This is the Quilter Select rotary cutter. It's very nice for arthritic hands or hands that need a little bit more support. I've got a small iron with me. I'm sewing on a Bernina 770. I've got a 1/4 inch presser foot, a 37D, a straight stitch needle plate, and some wonderful Aurifil thread. And then obviously you need your pattern, which is Santa's Village from Thimble Creek Quilts. Let's get started. You want to pre-starch your fabric, so apply a generous amount of your starch alternative, press them until it cools, and then you'll start cutting. We'll start by cutting the red. Now the red is going to be in the center of our block. It's also going to make the half square triangle units. When we're making a finished 4-inch half square triangle unit, you can cut about a 5-inch square, sometimes a little bit larger, but today we're going to be cutting 2 5-inch squares of this, and then for the center of the block it's going to be a 4.5. So 2 5-inch squares and 1 4.5 out of this. The green and the blue fabric, you do have a strip of green fabric. You can, you only need a 5.5-inch square out of this, so you will have quite a bit of extra of the green, and then you also need a 5.5-inch square out of the blue. So out of both of these, all you need is a 5.5-inch square out of each, so I'm just going to stack them and cut a 5.5-inch square. Where I got that math was using the no waste method from Bloc Loc, which is this method here. and you use the chart to find out what you're going to cut in order to yield 4. And the large square is going to be cut out of our dark colored fabrics, which is the green and the blue. So that's going to be 5.5. Next, you will cut your cream background fabric, 8 3 1/8 inch squares for the flying geese units, and 2 5-inch squares for the half square triangle units. We've got all our background fabrics cut, and we're going to get started making some flying geese units. So out of these squares that are measuring 3 1/8, you're going to marry those up with one with a blue and one with a green. You're going to lay 2 of them right sides together, and they will overlap in the center. So you're going to have that laying just like that. And I forgot to mention one of my favorite pens. This is an Air Erase sewing pen. It's from Sewline. You don't need to take anything to it for it to disappear. It just disappears over time. So I do like this pen. You could also use any other fabric-friendly pen. And you're going to mark a diagonal line that goes from point to point. So I'll mark that. Once you've marked that line, you're going to sew on each side. Getting ready to sew my flying geese unit. I've already marked it. I'm starting on a stoppy starty, or a little piece of fabric, and I'm going to feed in the piece of fabric so that the edge of the fabric is going a quarter of an inch away from my line. I'm using the Bernina dual feed presser foot and my 30/70. After you've sewn on each side of the line, you're going to cut that apart, and you will press it so that it is going towards the background fabric in this example. Normally you press towards the dark, but you're going to press it so that it looks like a heart. So 2 units that will look like that. Once those units are pressed, you'll take your other 2 squares that are 3 1/8. They will lay right sides down onto the background fabric, or the blue fabric in this example. And you will again mark a line diagonally from point to point and sew a 1/4 inch on each side of that line. Once those units are sewn, you will cut them apart using your line, and it will yield 4 flying geese units, and you'll trim them down using the Bloc Loc ruler so that they measure exactly 2.5 by 4.5 inches unfinished. When you go to the ironing board to press these, they're going to go towards the background, or this cream colored fabric. To square up your unit, you'll lay your Bloc Loc 2 by 4 inch flying geese ruler. It will lock into the diagonal seams that are going along the cream and the blue fabric. You'll have a perfect 45-degree angle, and then you'll have a 1/4 inch reveal at the top. I'm going to use my rotating mat so I can trim all the way around. And when you're done, you will have a perfect 2 inch by 4 inch finished flying geese unit. You'll do the same method with the green large 5.5 inch square and the background fabrics from your other cuts that were 3 1/8. We're ready to make half square triangle units out of the cream background and the red. These were cut about 5 inches. You're going to lay them right sides together and mark a line diagonally from point to point. I flipped it over so I could use the light colored fabric to mark my line. I'm going to use my air erase pen. I'm also using the diagonal mark on my ruler so that I can make sure I'm actually using a square, so it should intersect both points if I use my diagonal. And I'll sew a 1/4 inch on each side of the line. You'll then cut right on your line. You'll press towards the dark fabric. In this example, that will be the red. And then you'll square up your unit to 4.5 using the Bloc Loc ruler. Once pressed, I'll be using the Bloc Loc Half Square triangle ruler. If you can read the ruler and the seam was pressed towards the dark, you want the seam facing your body, and then when you lie the ruler onto your fabric, it will lie right along that seam and be perfectly positioned. You'll make another set of half square triangle units out of the other 2 squares to yield a total of 4 4.5 inch unfinished half square triangle units. We've got all of our units made. We're going to start putting our block together. So the red goes in the center. That's your 4.5 inch square. Then your half square triangles will go out into the outer corners. Then you'll put your flying geese units together as sets of 2, and you decide if you want the green on the outside or the green on the inside. Let's just take a peek. Remember, when you sew those 2 units together, that will measure 4.5, so you want to do that prior to sewing your blocks all together. So that's what it looks like with the blue on the inside. Now let's flip it around and go the other way. The other thing that you could do is you could rotate these to just give a different look. So that's one option. Again, you could rotate these. The possibilities are endless. So that's what's fun about quilting. You can rotate all your blocks around and get a new block. We did it! We made a 12-inch finished block out of half square triangle units and flying geese units. We used the Bloc Loc method for the no-waste flying geese and also for the half square triangle units. You could follow the traditional method. You could also use your AccuQuilt cutting system. This is friendly with the 8-inch cube to make half square triangle units and these flying geese units. Remember, you could cut something fun for the center. We have lots of great videos on our YouTube channel, so please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video on the center medallion, which will be on applique. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.